For 140 million years, one group of animals like no other before or since dominated all of Earth's terrestrial environments. We know them from their bones, fossilized reflections of their once massive bodies. They are the dinosaurs. We feel a deep need to know more about them. Why have dinosaurs so fueled our imagination? Perhaps it's because these seemingly indestructible giants are now extinct. Perhaps it is because the predator clan of dinosaurs speaks to the dark monsters lurking in our subconscious. Or perhaps it's because of their immense, almost unfathomable size. In the last 25 years, paleontologists, driven in part by the public's dinosaur mania, have begun to focus less on finding and describing new dinosaur species and more on asking questions about how dinosaurs lived and developed, about their life cycles, their origins and evolution. Everything you'd want to know about the behavior of any living group of animals today. In this program, we are going to see what the newest field of dinosaur study, the investigation of dinosaur reproduction, has to offer. It is the fascinating examination of dinosaur eggs, nests, and babies. So what exactly is a dinosaur? It may sound strange, but the question is not so easily answered. Do the fossils that populate the world's dinosaur exhibits belong to one large natural group, Dinosauria? Or are there really a multiplicity of distinct groups? Meat eaters, plant eaters, flying pterosaurs and birds, each belonging to a genetic order unto themselves. Dr. Robert Bakker has been at the forefront of the new dinosaur theories for over 30 years. His ideas have revolutionized the way we look at dinosaurs. When he looks at dinosaurs, he sees one large grouping, like branches on a bush.
Don't you love it? This is a dinosaur. This is a dinosaur thigh. Here we are at the knee end, and up the shaft of the middle thigh, and way up here, the hip socket. This is a big guy. This is a barosaur, run maybe 90, 100 feet long, a little head at one end, long, skinny neck, massive torso with elephant-like legs, and an incredibly long, dangerous whip-like tail. The dinosaur family tree has so many species in it, it's more like a blueberry bush. And the first cloud of species, the first tangle of branchlets, is this guy, the long-necked brontosaurs, also called sauropods, brontosaurus, brachiosaurus, supersaurus, all gigantic, all pin-headed, all long in the neck, all totally herbivorous. There are two other great clouds of species, the meat eaters and the beaked dinosaurs. We're going to see those guys inside. Second big cloud of branches, these guys. Here's Protoceratops. This is a beaked dinosaur, also called a bird-hipped dinosaur. Has the standard big dinosaur eyes and big dinosaur nostrils, but it's got a beak for biting plants. These again are plant eaters. Triceratops is a big cousin. The duck-billed dinosaur is a cousin once removed. Ankylosaurs, those dinosaurian tanks, they're in this group too. And the last of the three huge clouds of species are the most famous, The raptors and rexes, the meat eaters. This is Velociraptor, a little guy, a little carnivore with a big brain, found side by side in Mongolia with Protoceratops, the beaked plant eater. These guys go from heads this big, a really tiny raptor, to heads 5 feet long, the size of T-Rex. These guys are the natural enemies. The carnivore are the natural enemies of the beaked dinosaurs, and the big carnivores the natural enemies of the gigantic long-necked brontosaurs. And those are the three great clouds of branches in the dinosaur blueberry bush.
Although dinosaur bones were undoubtedly found by humans throughout recorded history, dinosaur collecting began in earnest in the American West in the late 1800s. It was during this period that the collecting techniques that are still used today were developed. Many of these early famous quarries still produce new bones, even after a century of collecting. Throughout the 20th century, teams of paleontologists embarked on expeditions that combed the planet looking for new dinosaur discoveries. At the same time as dinosaur bones were being collected, footprints of dinosaurs were recognized as a distinct part of the fossil record. Here was direct evidence of actual dinosaur behavior. Martin Lockley is the world's leading expert on dinosaur trackways.
First, it's important to remember that the tracks were made by the living animal when it was living and breathing and moving. So it's kind of like a movie of the activity of the animal, whereas the bones tell you more about the dead animal, how it died, where its skeleton ended up. Particularly, I think with tracks, we can get some kind of idea of what the flesh is like on the foot. If you were to put the foot skeleton in here or stick it in the mud, it wouldn't look the same as the track because it doesn't have flesh on it. The other thing that we can learn from tracks is how fast the animal was going, whether there's like a long step or a short step. So tracks are very useful for estimating the speed. Another thing, sometimes we find more than one dinosaur going in the same direction, so this tells us something about social behavior, whether they were gregarious or whether they were wandering around solitary on their own.
Perhaps the most social of all behaviors centers on reproduction, mating and rearing young. We know that for mammals and birds, mating can involve complex courtships and territorial struggles, while caring for young invertebrates varies from a multi-year process with many mammals to a leave the babies on their own strategy of fish and reptiles. So what about dinosaurs? How did they do it? The idea that dinosaurs were egg layers reached the public's awareness as the result of the Great American Museum's expedition led by Roy Chapman Andrews to the Gobi Desert in the 1920s. Phil Currie retraced Andrews' expedition in the 90s. It wasn't initially obvious that fossil eggs and dinosaurs went together.
The original dinosaur egg discoveries were actually made in Britain and France in the 19th century, but at that time they didn't recognize that they had dinosaur eggs. They were almost invariably identified as bird eggs. 1920s saw the American Museum of Natural History's expeditions into Central Asia, and they found dinosaur eggs. They also didn't recognize what they had the first year. They picked up one of the eggs and they thought it was an interesting bird egg. But the second year, the association was so strong between dinosaur skeletons and nests of eggs that they couldn't deny it anymore. These were definitely dinosaur eggs. They even found one site where there was a dinosaur laying on top of the eggs. They thought it was a predatory dinosaur eating the eggs off one of the plant-eating dinosaurs. But ultimately, they turned out that that was an incorrect assumption. It turned out to be the very first oviraptor on a nest of her own eggs. So these things were all found in the 1920s, and that changed the way people looked at the discovery of eggs. Even so, it took a long, long time before people could identify eggs. There are, in fact, well over 100 dinosaur egg sites in the world now, and places where you find dinosaur eggshell are far more abundant than that.
So what is an egg? At least a shelled egg. Shelled eggs appeared when vertebrates moved onto the land. Early reptiles laid the first hard-shelled eggs. Before that, vertebrates such as fish laid their eggs in water without any protective encasing. The first terrestrial vertebrates, such as this early amphibian, had to return to the water to lay its eggs. And like modern frogs, toads, and salamanders, they undoubtedly had an aquatic larva stage of embryonic development. In fact, we might think of shelled eggs as little protective packages for early stages of embryonic development. With the evolutionary invention of the hard shells, the number of eggs produced went from thousands, in the case of fish, to 1 or 2 with some modern bird species. Each individual egg became more precious. Laying eggs on land has its advantages and disadvantages. One big advantage is eggs can be hidden or protected from predators. On the other hand, a shelled egg requires a complex structure to function as an embryonic encasing. Eggs are easily damaged and cannot be allowed to dry out. They need a network of pores to exchange gases with the environment, and of course they need to stay within defined temperature parameters. We know this from studying modern bird eggs. But what about dinosaur eggs? Ken Carpenter has written a book about dinosaur eggs.
Dinosaur eggs are rather an interesting structure because remarkably, even though they're very, very old and they often have a dark color, they are in fact not too different from the sausage egg. With the dinosaur egg, we still have a lot of the original eggshell material, calcium. And the ostrich egg, and in fact almost any egg, will have these very, very fine pits all over them. Those are the pores. That's how the developing embryo breathes. And in fact, if we look at dinosaur eggs, we see the very same structure. Other things that we suspect is that on the inside of, say, the sausage egg, there is a lining of membranes that keep the yolk and whatnot from seeping out of the pores. That very same membrane has actually been found in some of the fossilized eggshells from Mongolia, or eggs from Mongolia. So the best we can tell, modern eggs and dinosaur eggs have an awful lot of characters that are the same.
So what would it take for an egg to fossilize?
This is a spectacularly good dinosaur egg. That's the top. It was buried totally in this nice, pretty red sandstone. That's the bottom. Now, to get fossil eggshell, you need special conditions. Eggshell will literally dissolve in most soils. You bury a clutch of ostrich eggs today in your average soil, and the acid in the water will slowly dissolve away the egg. But not here. What happened was a dinosaur laid an egg, a whole nest of eggs. The nest was covered up with a flood, layer of mud, and the chemistry of the mud was slightly alkaline, wasn't acid at all. There was no acid in the soil water to dissolve the egg. And consequently, after many, many layers of sediment, mud, and sand were piled up deep inside the forming rock, the egg stayed perfect.
We know that bird eggs differ in size and color, but what about the differences between the many species of dinosaur eggs?
Well, currently there are approximately 100 different species of eggs. This is based on different characteristics such as the egg size, the egg shape, the thickness of the eggshell, the structure of the eggshell.
Dinosaur eggs are laid in two basic shapes, spherical and elongate. The same is true for bird and reptile eggs. Elongated dinosaur eggs are up to 3 times longer than they are wide. All elongated eggs identified so far are associated with the predatory raptor-type theropod dinosaurs. These elongate eggs can range in length from 18 inches to 1.5 inches. The spherical dinosaur eggs appear to be associated primarily with plant-eating dinosaurs, such as the gigantic long-necked sauropods and the beaked duck-billed dinosaurs. These spherical eggs seem to range from 4 to 8 inches in diameter. Surprisingly, both the elongate eggs and the spherical eggs are not very large compared to the adult dinosaur. In fact, compared to birds, the egg is quite often small in proportion to the adult animal. The surface structure of each specimen of dinosaur egg is a major diagnostic feature. Here we can see the wide range of textures and patterns present on dinosaur egg surfaces. Following the general pattern of contemporary hard-shelled eggs, thickness of the shell is related to the size of the egg. The greater the volume of material the shell needs to hold in, the thicker and stronger the eggshell needs to be. The shells are important in another way. Thin sections of eggshells, when viewed under a microscope, are providing defining characteristics for grouping dinosaur eggs. So far, beaked and sauropod dinosaur eggshell structures form one kind of pattern, and the theropods form 2 other kinds of eggshell patterns. Overall, dinosaur egg study has come a long way in a short time. The report of a new egg site, especially one from the older Jurassic period, is cause for excitement. The site was discovered by Dr. Rod Sheets. Rod has had a lifelong love affair with dinosaurs. Rod will lead a small expedition to the unusual nesting grounds dubbed Dinosaur Island in the world-famous Morrison Formation. Joining him are Charlie McGovern, a fossil preparator, and Dr. Robert Bakker. Dinosaur Island is in a remote area in the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. The new location has generated much excitement among paleontologists, as it was one of only a handful of Jurassic sites where eggs and baby bones were found together.
We're finding baby dinosaurs right at the interface between the fluvial and the lake sediments. So, but we only find the baby Dinosaurus bones right here, in just one little spot.
What's remarkable about this site is that 150 million years ago, it was a tiny island, less than 500 square feet in size. It was surrounded by the waters of a river that flowed into a nearby lake. The team began searching the surface of this paleo island for bone and eggshell fragments that weather out as a result of the summer's flash rainstorms. Today feels like a good day.
Well, it's nice that we have a breeze. It's usually 100+ degrees out here.
The team is searching for bones smaller than the tip of a finger. Immediately, specimens start showing up on the weathered surface of the old mudstone.
Doesn't it excite you to know that 150 million years ago, mother dinosaurs were laying eggs here?
Dr. Bakker spots a bone.
It's very cool.
What's exciting and perplexing is that the team is finding bones that represent a variety of stages of early growth, from embryos to hatchlings. Hatchlings that had the ability to run on their hind legs once out of the egg.
Oop, there's another one. Right there.
This small site must have once been home to many chicks.
But just in this little pile alone here, there are 4 different sizes of animals.
So many baby bones. This is a most unusual discovery. What was happening on this little island 150 million years ago? With the surface collecting completed, the weathered sediment is gathered up for later screening.
Have another bag?
Charlie has designed a screening bag made out of mosquito netting that he's eager to test. He wants to compare this method with the old bucket and sieve technique. The discoveries at the site raise more questions than they answer. How and why did the babies die? Why didn't they leave the nest once they were hatched? The bones indicate that some of the hatchlings were 2 months old. Did they choose to stay on the island, or were they trapped?
I don't think it matters. It's just 2 versions.
Was this a
of the same
reoccurring
mouth
nesting
bone.
site, or maybe even a colony of nesting dinosaurs?
I don't know. This is puzzling to me, but a lot of fun too. Dinosaurus, the guy who laid the eggs here and whose babies we find. Dinosaurus, when I was a kid, was one of my favorite plant-eating dinosaurs because it was so fleet of foot, so elegant, so long in the leg, like a dinosaurian gazelle. But where I work in Wyoming, it's incredibly rare to find 1 bone of an adult. That makes your season. To find eggs and embryos and hatchlings and half-grown and 3/4 grown and adult all in this one tiny hill. It's extraordinary and demands careful thought. Were they living and dying and being preserved here? Or were predators bringing the bones, the skeletons here and chewing on them? Or some combination thereof? Don't know yet. Don't know. But this hill certainly is a special place.
The team has moved on to the nearest river 12 miles away from Dinosaur Island. Bags and buckets are carried down to the river where the material will be processed. As the water washes away the fine grains of silt and clay, the remaining gravel residue reveals new bone and shell fragments. And yes, the compact, lightweight mesh bags did work as well as the bucket and sieve method. How successful was the expedition to Dinosaur Island?
I think we did pretty good. So we've got several bones here. We've got some vertebrae, the centrums, and some vertebrae. We did pretty good. You know, if we can get a handful of bones picking them off the surface, that's good. And if we can get a handful of bones while we're at the river, that's good. And by the time we get all this concentrate back to the museum, we wash it some more and pick through it, and we'll end up with another handful of bones.
I have an arch. I have an entire bone. No,
You get so
fine, I found it.
Just before leaving, Dr. Bakker finds a specimen that may show the place of muscular attachment on an
That's nice.
embryonic
It's a
vertebrae.
column vertebra. You can see little zags right there. So that whole neural arch is inside that little...
You can see where the spinal cord went.
Yep.
Right there.
This is a significant discovery if true. Back in the lab, the rare fossil is prepared, and ultimately what the scientists hoped to see for the first time was revealed. Holding the bones of a baby dinosaur in your hand somehow makes the world of dinosaurs a little more real. So these small bones are a reminder that before dinosaurs became huge, they were babies no bigger than a month-old gosling. From the fossil record, we know that dinosaur eggs were laid in groups. Some of them in extraordinary clutches, like this circle of 33 eggs laid by a theropod, a meat-eating dinosaur. Here is a mound of spherical eggs from Argentina, and another from China. It's interesting to note that the spherical eggs, the ones that are randomly placed in a clutch, belong to the ornithopods, plant-eating dinosaurs like the duck-billed, and the sauropods. The carefully arranged elongated eggs belong to theropods, the meat-eating dinosaurs. So there are many examples of egg clutches, but are they truly nests? Pete Larson is the collector who excavated Sue, the most complete T-Rex ever found. Pete believes the arrangement of theropod eggs points to true nesting behavior, that it is a kind of preparation for brooding.
Birds of today, which are actually very closely related to these extinct theropods, birds of today will lay one egg a day or one egg every other day. But theropods, those extinct animals, actually must have laid a complete clutch of eggs at one sitting. And we see this, I believe this is true because of the very careful arrangement of those eggs. There's actually only a few degrees of turning, and it's repeated. The dinosaur would lay 2 eggs, it would turn and lay 2 eggs more, it would turn again and lay 2 eggs more, until it makes this nice spiral of eggs, because it would have been almost impossible for that dinosaur to go back to its nest day after day to lay another pair of eggs and have it arranged in this very specific order, in this spiral arrangement. Now, these eggs are all facing the center of the nest, and there's a round vacuity, a round opening within that nest and within that clutch of eggs that perhaps we believe that the mother theropod would actually be able to sit and brood the eggs.
So there seems to be growing evidence to suggest that at least some dinosaurs, like modern birds, created nests to ensure the successful hatching of their young.
There's really great evidence that these animals prepared sites for their nests. I mean, not so much from the Gobi Desert, just because we don't have nest structures preserved. We do have eggs that are found in typical positions that seem to be uniform for particular species. Like the oviraptorids, for example, always lay their eggs with the long axis facing out from the nest rather flat. Troodonids, on the other hand, lay their eggs sticking straight up. So these are stereotypical for species. At other parts in the world, however, people have really found things which I think that we can interpret as nest structures, where that there are places that have been hollowed out in the ground where the eggs are deposited. You know, all of this suggests that the nesting that we see in modern birds when they build nests and the nesting that we see in modern crocodiles when they build nests is something that was present in their common ancestor, and we would also expect that to be found in dinosaurs, which are descended from that common ancestor.
But a former American Museum colleague of Mark Norell's, Dr. Louis Chiappi, made a momentous discovery while leading an expedition to a remote region of Patagonia that would forever change how we view dinosaurs.
Well, we found this place, which is a fantastic site, in 1997. We were actually looking for very different stuff. We were looking for the ancestors of birds and early birds, and then we discovered this flat area where essentially the ground was littered with eggshells. And when we did a little bit more of reconnaissance of the whole area, we realized that we had found this enormous dinosaur nesting site extending over miles and miles, clearly the largest dinosaur nesting site ever found.
How large was the site? It may eventually prove to be over 15 miles long with hundreds of thousands of eggs. Not only that, the egg layers are repeating.
We have at least 4 different egg layers in the stratigraphic section of the site, which means that the dinosaurs return to the site time after time, a sort of a behavior we call site fidelity.
Each of these 4 distinct fossil egg deposits represents a nesting season when the eggs were destroyed by a flood event. Here was proof for the first time that dinosaurs, in fact huge sauropod dinosaurs that lived 80 million years ago, called titanosaurs, exhibited nesting behavior like alligators and many birds, returning over and over to the same nesting site. Once a dinosaur egg hatched, what happened? Were the chicks altricial, helpless like many birds are today? Or were they capable of moving from the nest immediately, precocial like the South American rhea? In any case, did a family structure form for the care and protection of the young? For most modern reptiles and crocodilians, once the eggs are laid, success of the hatchlings is determined by luck and large numbers. In this clutch from the previous year, only 1 hatchling has survived. And finally, did some dinosaurs form long-term family bonds, such as those exhibited in a dolphin pod? A short time ago, it seemed these questions might have to remain unanswered, but some new and exciting fossil discoveries have opened the door to peer into the past. While dinosaur egg finds were becoming common, the hope was to one day find a baby still inside the egg. Such a specimen could answer a lot of questions. At the end of the 1970s, hatchling or embryonic bones still inside the eggs were found in the Badlands of western North America. The first was the Cretaceous Myosaurus, found by Jack Horner in eastern Montana. But soon after, Phil Currie's team found duck-billed embryos in Alberta as well.
We went out in the mid-1980s and we found an excellent egg site where we had, in fact, duck-billed dinosaurs still as embryos inside of the eggs.
From the early discoveries of embryonic and hatchling bones, a picture was emerging, at least in the case of the Myosaurus and the large plant-eating duck-billed dinosaur. The babies were essentially miniature versions of the adults.
The difference between embryonic and juvenile bone, as far as duck-billed dinosaurs or hadrosaurs are concerned, is mainly the size. If we look at an embryonic bone and a juvenile bone of the same species, there's not a lot of difference in the features seen in these 2 bones. You do see, this is a limb bone. The main difference between the embryonic and juvenile lower jaw bone is that the embryo has a lot less teeth. Obviously, as the animal got older, it had to add teeth so it could consume more food.
Soon, other embryonic bones were found, such as this embryonic Protoceratops, one of the beaked dinosaurs. And remember that enormous sauropod nesting colony in Patagonia? Not only were embryonic bone and skulls found in the eggs, but something unexpected.
Among the many firsts that we came up when we found this place and over the years of research we've done there is the discovery of the first embryonic dinosaur skin. This is the only site this is a Patagonia site, the only site in the world where you can go, walk around for a little bit, maybe an hour or so, and come back with a piece of baby dinosaur skin. They're quite abundant. Embryos are quite abundant. It's part of the carnage that happened when the flood flooded the whole area. But and it is, of course, as any scientific first, interesting. For the first time, we can flesh out the babies and learn how they look like. I mean, we know that the skin has a scaly aspect. We can see different patterns of the tubercles or the scales or the knobby texture that essentially line the body of the baby sauropod. For example, some of them form rosettes. Some of the others form flower-like patterns where there are little scales that have the triangular shape of a petal. And then you see long stripes of larger scales that cross a uniform field of smaller scales. Presumably those rows run across the back of the baby.
So far, it is difficult to place the skin precisely over the skeletons of the babies, but specimens showing this may be forthcoming. In an interesting way, the quality of bones and skin inside an egg is one step better than the bone and eggshell associations found at Dinosaur Island. What if we could have a snapshot, a moment of living dinosaur behavior, captured complete, frozen in the fossil record for all time? It turns out such an event is possible. In the 1970s, a Polish expedition into the Gobi Desert of China unearthed this remarkable fossil. It is called the fighting dinosaurs. Besides the extraordinary preservation of the Protoceratops and the Velociraptor, the fossil has captured the behavior they were engaged in right up to the moment of their death. Here's how it might have happened. Locked in a life and death struggle, these two creatures were buried alive. Such extraordinary fossils are called life assemblages.
Now, fossil records can be divided into two categories. One is called death assemblages, where animals die, they're ripped apart by predators and things like that. Then all their bones are washed into a deposit. On the other hand, there's life assemblages, where animals are buried alive. And it's really the life assemblages which I think tell us the most about parental care.
So the search was on to find fossils that would reveal the secrets of dinosaur reproductive and social behavior, and the place to look was the Gobi Desert. Remember, the Gobi Desert in Mongolia was where Roy Chapman Andrews led his groundbreaking expedition in the 1920s. It was the place where dinosaur eggs were first properly identified. But it was also dinosaur heaven for paleontologists because of the abundance of dinosaur remains and their exceptional state of preservation. For decades, paleontologists had wanted to return, but the political unrest in China had made that impossible. Gradually, Chinese restrictions lifted, and Western dinosaur hunters once again set their sights on the Gobi. First came communist bloc paleontologists, and in the 1990s, Americans and Canadians were picking up where Chapman Andrews had left off. The Flaming Cliffs area contains some of the world's richest dinosaur fossil beds. It is of the late Cretaceous age, in the 70 million year range. As the fossils have been uncovered, they have revealed a virtual picture book of dinosaur behavior. In 1993, a team of paleontologists from the American Museum, led by Mark Norell, began to unearth an extraordinary oviraptor specimen in the Gobi Desert. An oviraptor is a medium-sized bipedal dinosaur. It has powerful long claws and, oddly, no teeth. Its name means egg robber because specimens were found in association with broken eggs. The belief was that it had stolen and eaten the eggs. But was that assumption ever wrong? When they finished uncovering the Gobi Desert specimen, the team made an exciting discovery.
Well, starting in 1993, we discovered some great oviraptor fossils in the Gobi Desert. And these are great because they're actually snapshots of time. It's an animal sitting on top of its nest, brooding its eggs, just like a modern bird would. Some people have questioned our interpretation of it, saying that, in fact, this animal either died in this position, haphazardly associated with the nest, or it was in the act of laying eggs. But I think we can really disqualify that on a number of grounds. One of the major ones is we found other individuals now. We've found 2 more at the same locality in the Gobi Desert. There's one that was found at Bayanmandahu in China. All of these animals have the same stereotypical position of sitting in the middle of the nest with their arms wrapped back around the perimeter of the nest. So just because we always find them in the same position really indicates to me, in fact, that they are brooding their eggs in the same way that modern birds do today.
An oviraptor probably looked very much like this crane as it sat on its nest. And since these dinosaurs were actually brooding their eggs, it would mean that at least some dinosaurs were warm-blooded, imparting heat to their eggs. Now, if we could only get a snapshot of a dinosaur chick freshly hatched from an egg, we might be able to tell how much parental care was required for these infant creatures. Were there in fact any dinosaurs that were altricial, needing intense parental care to survive? This is a behavior exhibited by many bird species. Or were all dinosaurs precocial, able to run freely once out of the egg? Without knowing dinosaur growth rates, it would be hard to say if any dinosaurs were altricial. What paleontologists really needed was to find babies that had just hatched. Perhaps they were in luck. About the same time as the egg-sitting oviraptors were found, another extraordinary fossil life assemblage was uncovered in the Gobi Desert. Prepared and studied at the Hayashibara Museum of Natural History in Japan, but now back in Mongolia, this specimen shows a flock of baby protoceratops, all of the same age, clustered together as if in a nest. Without a doubt, these animals were living together. These 15 individuals probably formed a social group. But what kind of social group? Were they like this alligator nest, with a nearby mother performing a protective function, and the nest representing a mere grouping rather than a sophisticated social bond between the babies? Maybe they were part of a rapidly moving family group like these geese, with complex social bonds. or were they confined to a nest requiring true parental care? In other words, was this a nest of helpless babies? Further work on the bones from this specimen might enable paleontologists to conclude which of the three possibilities is actually the case. To find out if any dinosaurs actually performed complex caring for their young, we would need to find an adult caught in the act of feeding its baby, or find a chick that had just hatched from an egg whose bone structure showed that it was incapable of moving around. Besides marking the return of paleontologists to the Gobi, the 90s was also the decade of dinosaur egg discoveries. Thousands of dinosaur eggs poured out of China into museums and private collections. One such specimen arrived in the United States from Hunan, China in 1993. Often these specimens needed elaborate preparation to reveal the eggs and nests hidden in their matrix. As preparator, Charlie McGovern began the tedious process of removing the rock covering the nest. To his surprise, he found dinosaur bones. In fact, baby dinosaur bones. In time, Charlie uncovered a complete skeleton of a hatchling dinosaur and dubbed it Baby Louie. Could this be the baby dinosaur scientists had been looking for? The presumed sequence of events leading up to the preservation of this exciting fossil probably went like this. The eggs were laid in the typical circular shape of most raptor dinosaurs. The mother or father incubated the eggs up to the time of hatching. Baby Louie's escape from the egg evidently proceeded normally, but shortly after, something went wrong. Just a few inches from the egg, baby Louie died and almost instantaneously was covered with sediment.
What we have here is a very unique specimen from China. It's a group of dinosaur eggs with an embryo or baby dinosaur lying on top. This is an animal that died during the hatching process or shortly thereafter. This specimen represents a new, unknown giant species of oviraptor.
Careful bone histological study of baby Louie hopefully will reveal if it was precocial or altricial. The evidence to date points to it being more altricial than most dinosaur babies found so far, perhaps crane-like. Nearly all of the dinosaur bones found in North America do not fit the life assemblage criterion.
This is called Jurassic hernia paleontology. Oh, love it. Well done. This is a backbone there. It's a flexed knee there, another knee there.
But in the first year of the new millennium, Dr. Bakker made a startling discovery in his Como Bluff, Wyoming dinosaur quarry. He found a specimen that may indeed qualify as a life assemblage.
Bob Bakker.
Hi, I'm Shelley. Nice to meet you.
In fact, he thinks it might be a nest in the form of a burrow. Rather than excavate the individual skeletons in the field, he dug out and brought the whole burrow back in a plaster of Paris jacket to be CAT scanned at the Avista Hospital in Colorado. The hospital staff was excited by the prospect of having a 141-million-year-old group of patients. The dinosaurs inside the small burrow were a small plant-eating species called drinker, about the size of a large house cat. They would have been on the low end of the food chain, a tasty meal like ground squirrels or prairie dogs today for almost all the larger meat-eating dinosaurs of their time. So they probably used burrowing for hiding and protection. The CAT scan worked. One by one, individuals were revealed. The little drinkers appeared to be compressed together, almost one on top of the other.
We've already discovered 3 individuals. I didn't know whether were there. They were in between the top layer and the bottom layer.
The picture that was emerging was a surprise.
That's the 4th dinosaur we've seen, going through it like that.
Yeah, and we probably have only gone through a third of it.
Mineralized, that means this was precocious. When the guys hatched out,
Not only were they finding babies, but adults and juveniles as well.
But this knee belongs to somebody else. That's too small to go with this tail. This is an adult tail, and this is about a half-grown
Inside the
knee.
burrow was an entire large family group. Much like a prairie dog colony today, with young and old living together.
That's 150 images.
At the end of the day, 12 individuals of varying sizes were revealed, all lined up facing west, in a curiously calm posture, almost as if they died in their sleep without a struggle.
More, rotate me. Oh, now you're seeing the side view of the vertebral bodies and the tail. Yeah.
The alignment.
Yep.
So this is indeed a life assemblage. Perhaps they died from a disease, as today often sweeps through prairie dog colonies. But was this life assemblage a nest? Probably not, since no eggshell was found. Unless, of course, the drinkers gave birth to live young, a phenomenon currently present in some snakes, but not birds. With just these 4 spectacular snapshots in time, paleontologists have garnered more accurate information about dinosaur reproduction than in the past 150 years of collecting and study combined. Since the first fossil bird, the now famous Archaeopteryx, was found in the 19th century in Germany, speculation has centered on the idea that birds are living dinosaurs. So what do the eggs of dinosaurs tell us about their relationship to birds?
When you look at dinosaur eggs, you see there's a tremendous variety, not only in the shapes of the eggs and the textures of the eggs, but also the histology, the microscopic structure of the eggshell itself is quite different in different groups of dinosaurs. One thing is quite clear, though, that when you compare the eggshells of dinosaurs to the eggshells of modern animals, they're much closer to what we see in birds than they are what we see normally in crocodiles. And especially the eggs of the meat-eating dinosaurs, which in many ways are almost indistinguishable from bird eggs.
Work on dinosaur eggs and baby dinosaurs has been rather revealing as far as understanding dinosaur relationships. For example, if we take this ostrich egg and we look at it, cut a section of it make it so thin that we can see through it with a microscope, we will see that the structure of the eggshell is in fact very, very similar to the eggs of many dinosaurs. Now that's rather interesting, because if we then also do the same thing with a crocodile egg, the egg structure is very, very, very different.
And everything we know about dinosaur eggs and hatching sites and dinosaur bones and tracks prove this same message. When you think dinosaur, think big bird.
So birds and theropod dinosaurs are basically the same creatures with a common ancestor that would be another dinosaur, not a reptile, not a crocodile. More and more scientists are saying birds are living dinosaurs. What remains is to discover more dinosaur nests, more dinosaur babies, and more dinosaur life assemblages. Just when we feel we understand them, dinosaurs reveal another clue. And another from their cryptic legacy. Perhaps they will always keep us guessing, but it is certain they will always keep us in wonder.